Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today. This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Marriott's on the move.
What?
Marriott's on the move.
Again?
Marriott's on the move.
If you're dreaming about moving to a new city to pursue the life of your dreams, this podcast is for you. Moving 18 times in 23 years to 5 of America's top cities, I know it's not easy to make those decisions alone. I help you develop the dream, the plan, and the move, even if we need to get scrappy to get you there. I'll be doing interviews, career and city spotlights, and sharing my crazy moving stories, tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. Traveling to explore your dreams has never been easier. Now let's get moving. Hey everyone. I am super excited for our guest today. I have Daniella Shepard with me today. She is the host of the podcast Alaska Divided by Zero on the Indie Escape YouTube channel, which is basically helping creatives bring their vision to the world, which I love. So we're going to get into that. But Daniella joined the Navy's nuclear power program at 18 to escape a small town in Mojave Desert. So I definitely want to talk about that. But she was diagnosed with MS, which disrupted her dreams of becoming an astronaut or a super spy. We'll get into more about her creative storytelling in a little bit, but she became an electrical engineer instead, and had this fascination with high voltage, which drew her to Alaska. So today we're talking about her living in Alaska, and then she's also moving to Hawaii. So we have a lot of things to talk about. But her and her husband have basically taken on a task of turning 30 acres of remote land into an off-grid nonprofit called 40 Mile Steam. 40 Mile Steam? I think I got that right.
40 Mile Steam. Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. Okay. So she writes stories about unique women in STEM, which we'll get into. She's published 2 novels, which they just sound awesome. She was telling me stories. There's teasers on her website. But we really are going to get into a little bit about Alaska today because COVID kind of, hit everybody, and it hit Alaska's tourist industry particularly hard. So I do want to talk more about that and kind of, just living in Alaska in general, because there's so many questions that come up between, what's it like to live in the cold all the time to like not having daylight, all that stuff. But after all that, her, publishing her real job, her stories, she's also an amateur photographer and a drone pilot. So you can see the videos that she's done for all of this on her Instagram and TikTok. So we'll get into that too. So Daniella, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be on your show and great to talk to you because I love sharing what I've learned about Alaska with people, because I'm not originally from Alaska. As you said, I moved here knowing not much about Alaska, only what I learned off the internet, and there were quite a few surprises. I moved here, let's see, this year makes 17 years that I've now lived here. So, there's a lot, when I first moved up here that I was pretty surprised. And
like what?
Well, people always talk about the darkness. Like, so when I moved here, I moved here in January of 2007. And I was hired to work in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. So on a rotational,
where's that?
It's the very northern edge of Alaska, the oil fields, and so I was hired to do a rotational job. I came in my first week, my boss said, here's your computer, here's your laptop, here is your chit for your Arctic gear, go downtown, pick up your Arctic gear, and you get on the plane on Monday and you're going to Prudhoe Bay. And I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. So I get and it was minus 40 in Prudhoe Bay when I get off the plane. And that's when I went up there, it was still like in the dark time of the year, like where the sun's not coming up very much. But so everyone always asks me, oh my gosh, it's dark up there all the time. And it is, but believe it or not, it's when the script flips towards summer that it really messes with you. The darkness does mess with you, don't get me wrong. But for me, it's the summer that messes with you. It's 80 days where the sun doesn't go below the horizon.
Oh, wow.
And so
That's even worse.
Well, it's really funny because it's like all of a sudden, like people don't realize how attuned we are to the light. And it's like your little brain is going, but it's still light out. I don't want to go to bed. Look at the beautiful bright sun. And you're just like, you want to be out doing things. And, like even here in Anchorage where the sun is down, the sun goes down for a few hours, but it's still what we call civil twilight all night. So,
okay, what's that?
So it's, like those twilight hours where the sun's below the horizon and the sky is that really pretty shade of lavender.
Yeah.
So it's like that all night. So it's bright out. You can still see. That's what we call civil twilight, but it's like that all night. So imagine how hard it is to sleep. And I think a lot of people really struggle all summer. So by the time fall gets here, you're just dead tired.
You're so tired.
unless you do things to kind of prepare yourself, like blackout curtains, sticking to a routine every night, because like one of my husband, he jokes, it's like, yeah, there's times you'll be out and you're like, yeah, I'm going to just do a little yard work. Oh, while I'm out here, I'm just going to do this. And I'll just go for a walk. And the next thing you know, you look at the clock and it's 2 a.m. because you're like, oh, well, I'll just do this. And it's like, yeah, I think people who come up here, they're not ready for that. They don't, it gets them the first couple of times. If you're on vacation, it's okay because you're only up here for a week or so. But moving up here, don't be surprised that the kiddos don't want to go to bed. So like, but Mom, the sun's still up.
Well, how do you even like get yourself up to Alaska? That's, do moving? Because you have to go through Canada. Like, what was that process like?
So for me, the company moved me up here. So they moved my stuff up here. I flew up here. So for people moving up here, there's multiple ways to get up here. You fly up here, there's the ferry system. So one of the things I recommend everybody buy is there's the Milepost. It's a book that you can get, and they print out a new one every year. And so it tells you like the different routes to take if you're going to drive yourself up to Alaska. Oh. And they update it every year with places you can stop, places you can camp, information on the ferry system. So if you're going to say take the ferry from Seattle to Haines, like the different stops of how you're going to go, like the actual ferry system going through Alaska, a lot of people so my husband, when he drove up here in the early 90s, he drove up across country and then up through Canada. So that's a way that I recommend, like if anyone's going to drive up here just for a vacation or to move, get a copy of the Milepost.
The Milepost. Okay.
Because
we're gonna put that in the show notes for sure. Because it's fascinating because, you see it on a map and you're like, oh, it's not too far from the U.S., but it is.
It is. And actually that's one of the things so I'm really happy with my current job and I like it, but I'm on LinkedIn. So I get constant bombardment from recruiters. Yeah. And one of the more humorous ones I got lately, and I showed it to my husband. So, and I drive all over the state for my job.
Yeah.
And this one recruiter, he sent me this link. Oh, I think you'd be interested in this job, which I wasn't, but he's like, it's at Fort Greely, and Fort Greely is close to Fairbanks and Anchorage. So I'm like, no, it's not. So so Fairbanks and Anchorage are pretty far apart just in themselves.
Yeah.
And Fort Greely is about a 2-hour drive just from Fairbanks.
Oh, wow.
So Fairbanks is probably about a 5-hour drive from Anchorage, 4 to 5 hours from each other. So for someone to say Fort Greely is close to Anchorage and Fairbanks is like, okay, this person is not from Alaska. And so one of the big mistakes people make when, like, they're coming from out of state and they look at the map and go, well, that's only one town away from another town. Oh, must not be very far. So they don't plan, they don't look at the actual distance. So, for example, we have a cabin in the interior. It's 400 miles away.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's like if it's like good conditions, probably
good conditions,
solid like 7-8 hours, right?
Yeah, good conditions. Under the best driving conditions, it's a solid 7-hour drive.
Wow.
But we've had bad conditions where it's turned into a 10 or 12-hour drive. So it's like, we have to be prepared for that. And you get people who are not prepared for that. And it's like, we have friends who come up here on vacation and they think they're going to do like the whole state in 2 or 3 days. And you're like, you got to be cognizant of how big the state is and that there's some places you cannot reach by road. They're only accessible.
I didn't even think about that.
They're only accessible by plane or by boat. And so, it's when you're like, so if you're moving up here from the lower 48, there are some places that, you might be moving to that you can only get there by plane. Like, so places like Kotzebue, places like, I'm trying to think of the name. If you're going to, a little island down in the southeast, it's not a Kodiak. If you're moving to like Kodiak, if you're moving to Juneau, we are the only state that the capital is not accessible by road.
Wow.
So it's one that because of that, Alaska offers what they call a constituent fare. So that way you get a discount so you can travel down to talk to your state representatives because we do not have a road to access our state capital. But so all these things to consider is like, if you're moving up here, where are you moving and what are the logistics to get there? It may be, so like we have people who come up and they're maybe going to, so if they're like, might be a teacher.
Yeah.
And they may be going to a very remote village in the interior. So it may be a combination of multiple ways to get to where they're moving to. So if it's like, it might be part road and part air. So like for right now, so we have a cabin. I told you our cabin in Chicken is, right now the road is not accessible. We cannot get there. So that's along what they call the Taylor Highway. At the end of the Taylor and then top the Taylor Highway is what we call the city of Eagle or the town of Eagle. So if they're like, I'm going to go be a teacher in Eagle, that means that road is inaccessible from October 16th to April 30th. So if they're going to go be a teacher in the town of Eagle, that means they have to be prepared for the school season to be cut off and only accessible by air, which gets
that's
really
a commitment.
expensive. And then another town, same thing, the town of Ruby, which is a historical town, a native village out in the interior of Alaska. Lime Village is another one. These are all villages that are only accessible by air.
Wow.
So
wait, can we go back to Chicken real quick? Why is it called Chicken?
So
is there a story there?
There's a story
Chicken,
there.
Eagle.
So Eagle was the first town incorporated in the state of Alaska.
Okay.
The second town incorporated was Chicken. So according to legend, they wanted to name it Ptarmigan. But because no one could agree on how ptarmigan was spelled, they decided to name it Chicken because chicken tastes like ptarmigan, and they didn't want to be embarrassed by spelling it wrong. And because this is when they wanted to get the first post office there in Chicken, and so you have to have a name for the town in order to get a post office. But so that's the one story we've heard, and it's the most probable story. Yeah. The second story we've heard is that so where they're in Chicken, you have what's called placer mining. So placer mining, the gold is very fine and like chicken feed. So people thought that since the gold was like chicken feed, they would call it Chicken. So those are the two competing stories, but the most popular one is because they couldn't figure out how to spell ptarmigan. That's the one we hear the most from the locals.
Ptarmigan sounds like a Game of Thrones family name, like the Ptarmigans.
The Ptarmigans. The Ptarmigans.
Oh
and
my gosh,
they are quite plentiful out there. There are
are they?
ptarmigan everywhere out there. There's
Oh, so ptarmigan is like it's an animal.
yeah. The willow ptarmigan is the state bird in Alaska.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, I totally missed that. If you said it, I'm so sorry, but that makes a lot of sense of why it tastes like chicken. I thought it was just like the analogy that everything tastes like chicken.
Nope. It's the state bird is the willow ptarmigan in Alaska.
Have you heard of Monat or Modern Nature? I hadn't either before my friend Monica was raving about their skincare products that she's obsessed with. I took their hair quiz to find out which product line would be best for me since I just happen to be looking for new shampoo and conditioner, and I signed up for their VIP package that got me a little bit of everything to try out. Turns out they are the first anti-aging hair care line in the world, which I didn't even know was a thing, and their products are gluten-free, vegan, and Leaping Bunny certified, which means they're never tested on animals. Now I'm obsessed with their rich formulations that feature botanical extracts, essential oils, and other naturally based ingredients, and I want to share those products with you. I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can hit the faves page on my website. It's safe, EU approved, and clinically tested by third parties, so essentially, robustness approved. Now back to the show.
Boom. Play it.
Have you ever listened to a commercial on the radio or a podcast and thought, I could totally do that? Well, I am challenging you today. Being a voiceover artist is an amazing side hustle that can be done from the comforts of your own home. Heck, it can be an amazing career. Just ask Jesse Carroll. Jesse's got over 1,000 voiceover credits to his name. Ever watch Backroad Truckers? He's the narrator. He's also done a ton of commercials for brands you would definitely recognize. If you're ready to try your hand at voiceovers, go to marriottsonthemove.com and head to my favorites page to learn more about his new digital course and coaching package. If you use code MOTM, you'll get 20% off at checkout.
Hey, Micah Burgess here. I just wanted to drop in for a second and let you guys know that we are rebranding my podcast. We've got a new name, My Doula Micah, my birth, my baby, my life. And we are super excited about extending the content that we've got going from childbirth to postpartum. Now we're including family and marriage and just kind of your life in these childbearing years and what that looks like, and maybe give some helpful tips and wisdom. I mean, you know, I'm 51. I got 6 kids. I think I can help you guys with some stuff. There will still be local interviews, of course. And I'm also expanding now to have including more nationwide interviews. We even have somebody from Canada and Australia. So I'm super excited about this process and what we've got in store for y'all. So join us.
Okay. See, I would have assumed it was the polar bear because obviously that's what we associate with polar. Have you seen polar bears? I mean, I'm assuming you haven't met them because you're still alive.
I have seen polar bear working up north in Prudhoe Bay. I've seen polar bear, I've seen brown bear, and I've seen black bear. So
wow.
Yeah, I've seen the black bear and brown bear in chicken because we're south of the Brooks Range. North of the Brooks Range, you only see polar bear and brown bear or grizzly bear. Black bear stay, basically what the rule is, they stay south of the Brooks Range where there's trees. Black bear don't like to be where there's no trees, is what we've been told. So we've seen out in chicken where we are, we have both brown bear and black bear. North of the Brooks Range, you have polar bear up on the Beaufort Sea, and then you have grizzly bear.
So that's a lot of wildlife. What other? I mean, I associate like Alaska just in general with bears, but then like just like the most majestic and beautiful, like seals and penguins and eagles, and you know what I mean. Like it's just like the rich wildlife I associate Alaska with.
So yeah, here in Anchorage there are bear. So here, like around Anchorage, we have both brown bear and black bear. We have moose. There's actually, so one of the other things, people coming to Alaska, you have to be very cognizant of the wildlife. More people are killed by moose than bear in Alaska. In fact, it's they are just these huge animals that are one of my friends says, think of a Volkswagen on stilts with just untamed rage. Because you can look at them and they seem so quiet and docile, just chewing their little cud, and then all of a sudden they will turn on a dime and stomp you. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You can be walking down the trails here in town, and you'll see 10 bikes go by them, and the 11th one is the one they decide to just turn on. We've had moose out here in our yard, so they come right into our yard and do their thing, and they'll be sitting out there just chewing their cud, and then somebody walks by with a dog and they decide, that's it, I'm going after him. It's like there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like, they are just these
Scary.
Yeah, they are. They one of my friends, that he's ex-Canadian military. He says they're like nature's tanks. He's been all over the world, and the creature he's most terrified of are moose. And I understand.
Moose.
I am more scared of moose than I am of bears, actually, because bears are bear behavior is fairly predictable. Moose behavior is like all bets are off. You don't
It's
know.
like the guy at the bar that's had like a couple too many, and then like somebody says something like completely innocent, and then it's a game over.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, actually, that's a great way to put it. Because the moose are like, yeah, it's like that guy who's nice and drunk and he seems pretty complacent, and then all of a sudden the switch flips and he's on you.
Yeah.
Whereas bear behavior, actually, my Alaska Divided by Zero podcast, we interviewed John Nelson, who's with the USGS Wildlife Defense Service, and he's an expert on bear behavior, and so defending people from bears in the wild. And so we did a whole podcast on bear behavior. And so, yeah, bears are, I mean, sure, you can always have that one, but for the most part, he went into bear behavior and whatnot. And it was like, wow, I learned a lot, because there was a lot of things I thought I knew about bears.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is amazing,
They are beautiful creatures. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Well, what I find to be interesting is, how curious bears are.
Yeah.
They're you have to be very careful with your food and careful how you store things, because bears will chew on anything. So for example, we hand sanitizer. So in our outhouses out in Chicken, we leave hand sanitizer. We've had bears chew up a whole bottle, like I'm talking an economy size bottle of hand sanitizer, just because they're curious. And then we keep lime for putting down into the pit. We keep lime there. Yeah. We've had them bite the metal canisters just to try and figure out what it is. They're not trying to eat it. So bears will go up and they'll chew on things, just trying to figure out what it is. So they're just very curious creatures. And so they're smart, and they'll sit there and just try and figure out what you are and what this is. So yeah, it's one of those things that they're smart. Whereas moose, like I said, moose are just kind of dumb and filled with rage.
Yeah. So the bears are the other guys at the bar that just are like, Yeah,
it's like,
wait, is that popcorn?
Yeah. Moose are totally like, wait a minute. Bears are like, wait a minute, that looks good. Can I try it out? Okay.
Yeah. I'm a sampler. Oh my gosh. It's funny. Speaking of bears, I just was flipping through channels 2 nights ago at the hotel, because I was traveling this week, and The Great Outdoors was on, and it was the part, like I flipped on it, and all of a sudden it was the part where like the bear turns around and he gets shot in the butt and the hair flies off the butt. And when you said that about brown bears, that's the first thought I had. That's why I was like cracking up over here, because I'm like, that's the scene I came up upon. Well, wait, let's get into your podcast a little. Tell me a little bit about Alaska Divided by Zero. I love that.
So yeah, we've been on hiatus for a little bit because we're building a house in Hawaii, and we don't really have good internet connection. But yeah, the whole idea, and it's part of the Indiascape network as a whole. So if you check out the Indiascape network, is to bring creatives together and help them. So Alaska Divided by Zero specifically was to talk about things, both Alaska and writing related, that the industry kind of gets wrong. And so, like, for example, I talked a little bit about the darkness issue. Like, here it is
Yeah.
in Alaska, people like hyper focus on the dark and they think it's just pitch black all the time. Well, like I've posted pictures on my Instagram page of like, oh, here it is. This is December 24th, or not 24th, 21st, the solstice, the darkest day of the year. And you can see the horizon as beautiful twilight out. And this is above the Arctic Circle. It's obviously not dark, complete darkness. And so there's myths and misconceptions about what it's like to work up here and to live up here. We don't live in igloos. It's not absolutely, and depending on which part of the state you're in, it's like there's places here in Anchorage, for example, we're considered the northern part of the temporal rainforest on the West Coast. So we're actually warmer on average than some places in the lower 48. So, like you'll be looking at temperatures like, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and we're warmer than them. It's because we sit on the water and we're part of that temporal region. So we're kind of more maritime. Whereas then when you get into obviously the interior, like where our cabin is, that's where you get those record colds, the -70s, and wind chills, these insane wind chills. On the flip side, like people think, well, the Arctic, up where Prudhoe Bay is, that must be the coldest. The interior is the coldest because you don't have that water to keep it warm.
Yeah.
So there's lots of interesting things. And then I always recommend when people are coming to Anchorage, a great place to visit the Alaska Native Heritage Center here in town, because you look at how big Alaska is, and talking to the different, like going to and exploring the different native cultures across Alaska. They're so varied. There's 5 or 6 different cultures, like per the different regions. And so trying to paint them all with one brush, like, oh, well, you have your Inuit, your Yupik, your Athabascans in the interior. You have your Tlingit and Haida down in the southeast. You have the Aleutian Islanders. So you have all these different regions, and people just must think, oh, well, this, they must, like you're just Alaska Native. And it's like, well, they're so different. And it's like, so do you know what, like, so obviously English is the most commonly spoken language in Alaska, but what is the second most common?
I don't know.
Yupik. So is the second most common spoken language in Alaska. Though I was talking to, I'd love to get her on my podcast. I'm working on it. I was speaking to an elder, a Yupik elder, and she said that the downside is they're starting to lose interest from the younger generation of people learning the Yupik language, but they're working on it. They're trying to get it into the school systems as a language that people can learn. And then another, when I was going through my researching my books, so you have your northern and southern Athabascans. So northern Athabascans are interior of Alaska region. Your southern Athabascans are the Navajo down south, the southwest of America. They can't explain why, but the words in those languages are very similar, even though they're thousands of miles apart.
Interesting.
So these are the kinds of things we try and explore on my podcasts, but we also do a little bit of exploring of writing, a little bit of, like I said, I mentioned John Nelson. That was just a great podcast. We've actually had him and Dan Morgan from the USGS twice, because just going over like bear awareness in Alaska is a huge thing. Because while I said that moose kill more people than bears, we still have a lot of people that encounter bears. So, for example, but at the same time, people like Alaska, that must be the place where most people get killed by bears. Where do you think is the place most people get killed by bears or injured?
I think California comes to mind second for me, but I don't know why.
It's actually, I want to say it's a toss-up between California and Yellowstone. Because
interesting.
it's places where there's more people in contact with more bears. So tourist hotspots. That when you look at Alaska, though, yes, we have a lot of bears, but when you look at our density, we're so spread out.
Yeah.
That's, here in Anchorage, we do have, several bear encounters a summer, but compared to Yellowstone, where you got a lot of tourists, or places like Yosemite, it's more concentrated. So you have a lot more chances for someone to get hurt, or a bear to get hurt usually.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the tourists want their selfies, and they're willing to go to great lengths to get them. And
it's like, oh no, leave the bear alone.
I know. That's why you have Zoom on your camera. Just take a picture from a distance.
Yeah, our scariest bear encounter out at our cabin was it was one summer when my husband's father was visiting, and I remember the date perfectly. It was August 10th because that was Shep's birthday.
Oh.
And we had been installing flooring in the cabin all day, and Susie, who's the bartender and bar owner down at the Chicken Creek Saloon, had made him a pie for his birthday, because pie is his favorite, by the way.
Okay.
So we were going to take him down for his, first thing. August 10th also has to be the first. It's also, at least that year, was the first day you could legally shoot a bear, because there's a window in which you cannot shoot a bear there in the summers in the region where we are. So anyway,
do people eat bear meat?
Oh yeah, you can eat bear meat. You have to cook it really, really well. It's not like you're going to have like a bear steak. You usually eat it as ground beef, or you have to cook it really, really well because of trichomoniasis.
I don't know what that is.
It's like worms. It's a type of worm that gets in the meat. So it's the same thing. Like, it's the same kind of worm that we worry about in pigs.
Yeah.
It can infect the muscle and infect the heart, and so you have to cook it really, really well. And so in pigs we can inoculate for it. In wild bears, you obviously can't. So people. I've had bear meat, but I've had it like in spaghetti or in burritos and stuff as ground meat. It tastes pretty good. It's and also just a side note, it depends on the bear and it depends on the season. So what they've been eating. So, but I'll get to that in a second.
Berries versus yeah.
So this particular bear, they were cleaning up the saw. We were going to get ready to go into town. I walk out on the deck of the cabin, and about 50 yards away, there was a full-grown male grizzly, like just nosing around. And I'm just like, uh-oh, like I'm trying to be like on the down low about it. I'm like this, Ray, there's a bear, to my husband. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like starting to lose it. I'm like, and he gets up on the deck and they're like, Ray, there's a bear. And the second time I said bear, that thing knew its name. It looked at me.
He's like, where?
So it looked at me, and I'm like, oh no. And Ray's like, what are you talking about? And so that's when I said, Ray, there's right there. And I'm pointing. As soon as I did that, that bear reared up on its hind legs. And he saw it then. I mean, this was a big bear. And now bears can run, like, so from my podcast I did with John and Dan, bears can run like 30 miles an hour. They can, if you try to shoot one, you might get one shot if it decides to charge you. They're fast. And so Ray grabs the gun and he tried it. So that bear was doing the, like, do I charge him or do I run? Do I charge him? Do I run?
Yeah.
It decided to, like, it was looking like it was going to charge us. Ray took a shot and it ran. And Ray missed and it took off.
Oh my God. Thank God.
And so it turned out, from like when we went in the bar that night, talking to the other miners in the area, it had become a nuisance bear. It was breaking into other cabins and stuff. And it had killed somebody's dog. It
Oh,
had,
no.
it was, when bears become habituated to humans, it becomes a really bad thing. There's a saying, a fed bear is a dead bear, because
Mm.
when they become accustomed to seeing people as a source of food, it's a bad deal. You want to keep them. That's why we use bear proof containers. That's why you store your food away from you. You just don't want them to associate you with food, because then you become the food.
Yeah. That's
And
scary too.
so yeah, eventually somebody ended up getting it, because it was like getting more and more aggressive. They become really aggressive. Whereas another time that same summer, there were two small black bears cruising around, and all you had to do is like talk loud and they'd run away.
Yeah.
Like
They
they
get
they were
scared.
like they were like they're like, oh my god, people, like
That's
they
what you
didn't.
would hope they would do, but no.
That's actually what, like, most bears who are not habituated to people, they come around, they're kind of curious. So like, well, I mentioned they're curious. They're like, hey, what's that? But then as soon
Yeah.
as you like make a noise or talk, they're like, oh my god, what is that? And they run off. And so it's like, yeah, that's why when you're out walking or hiking, they recommend you talk, you make noise, because most bears will be like, I don't want anything to do with that. It sounds
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Wait, so when you talk about your cabin, now I'm from the Midwest. So, like cabins in the Midwest, it's like glamping, right? They've got internet and running water, and bathrooms are in the inside, not on the outside. Like, I imagine a cabin in Alaska is a little different. Am I wrong?
Well, it depends on where you are. So our
Okay.
cabin, like I said, we're 400 miles away from Anchorage. We're, just outside of Chicken. We're about 6 miles south of Chicken. We have our cabin structure, which we're a totally dry cabin. By the way, we have no internet, no AM/FM radio, no cell phone reception out there. Once we get on the Taylor Highway, we have actually we say that we're upscale because we have two outhouses, not just one.
Oh.
But we have no like running water. We have two outhouses, so we have to haul all the water we use out there.
Wow.
We do have two structures. We built a kitchen structure and a shower sauna structure. We don't have. We're getting ready this summer, hopefully, to lay the piping, because what we're going to do is we're going to start a water collection system, so that way
Mm.
eventually we can put in a shower, and then also put in a system so that way we can do dishes and whatnot. Right now we do dishes by hand. So like we haul our water out there, we boil the water, and then we scrub the dishes.
Yeah.
What we do for showers right now is, like, we joke, it's the French maid shower, and then
Just a little sponge bath.
you do a sponge bath, and then if we're like, oh gosh, we're really dirty and we can't stand each other, we go into the town of Chicken, and they have showers there. So like, you can pay for a shower at the RV park, and so we'll go in and shower every couple of days. But yeah, otherwise we're totally off grid. I did back in 20, the summer of 2020, we put in an inverter system, so a solar kit and inverter system,
Mm.
so that way we could run basic power. And that was the same summer that we put in our kitchen and sauna kit. And so yeah, we're working on our water system, and so we're getting towards where we'll have a few more amenities, but we'll probably always just have the outhouses, because
Yeah.
that's a lot easier to manage out there, that far off the grid. Where we are, I'd say we're doing water collection. Where we are, we only get 11 inches of rain per year. So
Oh,
we are
wow.
only 1 inch away from being considered a desert. So we really have to manage our water. And most of our water we try and put towards growing things. So that area was completely burnt out by a major fire in 2004. It
Mm.
was the Taylor Complex fire, which I think today, I'd have to look it up, was still the largest fire by area in Alaska history.
Oh, wow.
It burned a massive amount of acreage. And so like when we first started going out there, it was like, if you had white socks or anything even light colored, you just threw it away after you were done, because everything was charred.
Oh, wow.
And so we're slowly bringing the ground cover back. We still keep a fire defensible space for about the first 5 acres around the cabin, And also so that way we can see the bears when they decide to kind of wander through. Because you'd be surprised how fast the bears and moose just blend into the foliage, almost like they're naturally camouflaged. You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see in the last couple of years how the wildlife is starting to come back in. So like for the first couple of years, we never saw any real moose or bears or anything. But now we're seeing more ermine. We're seeing more, we've seen lynx. You know, we've seen lynx around the cabin. So like we've got different birds. So we've got the big, we've got the little boreal owls. So technically up there we're a boreal forest.
Okay.
But we've got the little boreal owls, which are really tiny. But then we've also got the big owls, or the oh goodness, my brain just
I
went
know, I'm
blank.
trying to remember what they're called. I can picture them with the big eyes.
Oh yeah, they're not the barn owls, but they're they're like 2 foot tall. They're huge. I'll think of it in a bit, but I won't linger on that. But we've got hawk owls, we've got other kinds of birds of prey, and of course you've got the ravens all over Alaska. You've got the ravens, but then like I said, we've got the ermine, we've got wolverine. So all these creatures are slowly starting to come back after the burnout. For the longest time, we didn't see any of them. Now we see them on a fairly regular basis. So that's a really good sign as the ground cover starts to come back.
Yeah.
So we're really excited.
Life
about
is
that.
coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only been almost 20 years. Actually, this year is 20 years since the fire. And so stuff is starting to come back to, like slowly back into the region. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. We're excited about it.
So when you go to the cabin, is that when you do like your writing, or do you just read and relax, or is that where you guys homestead, or
a little bit of both? So I'll typically do some reading, some writing. We typically a lot of my reading and writing like in the early morning, because that's just when I'm most productive. During the day we'll get up and we'll do a lot of the yard work, the planting. A lot of time we're spending a lot of time clearing brush, because we like I said, we try and maintain that fire defensible space, and it's just a constant. Even though you would think stuff out there grows really slow, but certain things like the willow and spruce trees grow pretty fast. So we're just out there constantly cutting. We're doing a lot of earth work, because like I said, we're getting ready hopefully this summer to start laying pipe, and we're going to lay some cable. What we're also going to do this summer, though it won't happen this summer, we're doing the earthwork to eventually put in guest cabins and guest tent platforms. And then, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're still constantly planning. So even though we've got a lot of good ground cover coming back, we still transplant ground cover from places that are healthy, because, what we've learned a lot from talking to experts is that the soil is just as important as the plant. Like some of the places the plant needs the symbiotic relationship between the bacteria and the soil and the plant to grow. So we've been going to places that still has healthy ground cover before the fire,
transplanting it
and transplanting, so that we're getting the soil and the plant. So that way we can reestablish our ground cover. And that learning that has helped a lot, because, at first what we were trying to do, we were trying all this crazy stuff to get, like you're getting the seeds and you're getting potting soil and you're trying to get it to grow and it's not growing. It's like, well, we talk to experts. It's like, well, it's not the right kind of bacteria. And it's like, no way. Like you have to, and then but getting the,
like, I Googled this, it's fine.
It turns out there's bacteria that works specifically with, so in this case, it was like this flowering dogwood that we have. It's like, well, that flowering dogwood actually needs a specific kind of bacteria. And then the same with the moss. Well, the moss needs a specific bacteria. And we're like, wow, we didn't know that. And so we're learning, but then reporting back what we learned. Oh, this one's doing okay, but this one's not doing so great. So there's something more to it. And it's like, oh yeah, well, that's because you're on a slightly north facing slope, and it oh
man.
But it's because
that's the stuff that Martha Stewart would know,
Yeah, but it's funny because it's like also because the region up there is we're subarctic, and we're also in what's called a discontinuous permafrost region. So there's lots of subtleties too of like why it might not grow well. And we're a very slow growing region. We're like a zone like one region. So
Yeah.
it's like there's very few things that will grow there. And we've learned that the hard way too. Like, oh well, this technically should grow here. It's a zone one. It'll grow. Nope,
Yeah.
not gonna grow. Like,
Well, and that's the hard part about homesteading is that you just don't know. It's all experimental, right? And like
yeah,
you need to know what the local like environment is, the ecosystem. I had on the last episode, I had Amy Fagan from Grounded in Maine, and she talks all about sustainability, and she's got chickens, and so we were talking a lot about that, just because it's like it's something that you have to be mindful of, but we don't inherently know it. We have
right.
to learn it, and then we do it and then pass it on and see what works.
Well, what's interesting, like when you mentioned that, is like, so you look back at Alaska and even the gold rushes, like California, the Yukon, Alaska gold rushes and stuff. So one of the big killers during the gold rushes was scurvy, right?
Oh,
Scurvy was a
wait,
huge killer,
wait, what
right?
is scurvy? I know
Scurvy
what that
is
is.
vitamin C deficiency. That's all scurvy is. Vitamin C deficiency. Well, the funny thing is you look around, like Ray and I joke about it a lot. So like there, for example, Copper Center during the gold rush, there's record upon record of just hundreds of people dying of scurvy. But if they looked around, the antidote for scurvy was all around them, but none of them knew it.
What what could
So,
they have? Was
so
just
for
what they would
example,
eat?
yeah, so rose hips are high in vitamin C. The Alaska natives knew it, and so they often harvested them.
Yeah.
The miners coming in had no idea. So they just literally sat there and died of scurvy.
Wow.
They knew that at that point in time, they knew that vitamin C deficiency, they didn't know what vitamin C was, but they knew that scurvy was caused by, like not eating certain things. So they would
Yeah.
eat things like potatoes. So potatoes are high in vitamin C, oranges are vitamin C, limes are high in vitamin C. So they're sitting there waiting for shipments of these things. And when they couldn't get them, they would just die.
Die.
But it's like, here it is in the environment all around them. They had cranberries, they had blueberries, they had rose hips that were all growing naturally right there. The local people, the local Atna, which are Athabascan, knew this and they were harvesting them. And like you look around, there's fields of wild roses, but the people coming in had no idea. And so they just
And
died of scurvy.
you would think that they would engage with the locals, unless that's something that like they weren't welcome or the locals wanted them to leave.
I
you
don't know.
know.
So like I know from when we visited the up in Dawson City, it was a really cool tour at the Trontiquetchin Center. They said that a lot of times, like the Russians knew they increased their chance for survival if they married a local woman because the local women knew how to survive.
Yeah,
And
genius.
they knew what plants to harvest. They knew what foods to eat. They knew what foods not to eat. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if there was, like it would be interesting to look back through history and see, was it prejudice? Probably is what I'm going to guess. Oh, well, we can't associate with those people,
Yeah.
that's going to be my gut feel there. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to look historically of like, hey, we're just not even going to listen to these people about what's good to eat here and just wait on our potatoes and
Yeah.
suffer.
That it's funny because one of the things that I'm writing is because I recently went to Waco, Texas for we did some stuff with Rogue Media, which is my podcast network, and we did like they had a block party and we did a bunch of stuff. And one of the things was a festival with a battle of bands, and I was talking to a ton of locals and just asking them a ton of questions about, why they moved there and like what normally happens and if they've been to the block party before. It turns out the block party was new. But it was interesting because I came back and I was like, you know what? Like, I just naturally ask a lot of questions. I'm genuinely curious about a lot of different places because people ask me like, hey, have you ever been here? I'm thinking about moving here. And so I put together, and I just started this a couple weeks ago. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But it's like questions to ask the locals when you're thinking about moving somewhere. And I talk about doing a proof of concept. And it's really, I mean, if somebody can go there for longer than a week and figure out, things like you just said, like, well, how far something is from something else, like your commute to work every day, 4 to 5 hours would have been a long commute for you from that recruiter perspective. But like things like that, like, what are the local festivals? What should I be eating? Like things like that. And people don't often think about that when you're going to visit a new city. You just see like what you like, right? But it's really important one of the first questions I asked is, how do people feel about outsiders? Like, do they welcome them, or are you going to get run off your property? Like I know two people who have told me stories just in the last 6 months about decent sized cities that you would be shocked that like them going there from another city. I don't want to give it away, but like they came from a really, really big city to like kind of a mid-time kind of, or mid to size feel. Gosh, I can't talk. Time is it? It's yeah. Like it's too late to have coffee. But that was the thing, is that they were really surprised. Like once if people figured out that they were not from there, they weren't as cordial and they weren't as welcoming, and they were shocked by that. And then they started everything that happened. They felt validated that they weren't welcome and they left, and I was like, wow, interesting.
See, the thing about Alaska, we joke that Alaska is a little big town.
Yeah.
So it's small. It's a big state, but sparsely populated, right?
Yeah.
People from Alaska, I would say, my impression, are very welcoming. They're going to be very curious about who you are, where you're from. Are you doing okay? Why'd you move here? Like we're like these curious little bears. Like who are you? Where'd you move here from? Are you doing okay? Because I think the statistic is something like 50% of the state changes out like every 5 years is what I think the statistic is.
Oh, wow.
People either love it here or they hate it here. Well, we also have a huge military population. So that's also feeds into it as well. But yeah, people either love it here or they hate it here. There's no in between. Like I said, I moved here 17 years ago. My husband moved here 30 years ago. But some people just can't handle it. It is an expensive state. People don't like being far away from home. But on the flip side, you have people like they graduate high school and they're like, man, I want to get out of here. I want to go to college somewhere else. And then they're desperate to get back. It's like, it's like there's no in between. But yeah, like what we found is like people, once they realize that you're serious about being in Alaska, they like latch onto you and they're not going to let you escape. They're like, no, here, come on. Like what's been really funny, especially if you're into the outdoors or you think you might be into the outdoors, people are like, let's drag you on for a 5-mile hike. That whole thing about the summers being, like, hey, it's sunny till like midnight. It's like, hey, we're going to meet up at 9:00 and go hiking till 2 a.m. And so there's so many people that, especially like the younger crowd, like the cool thing about Alaska, especially if you're in the younger crowd, is that people want to get together and they want to meet up. They want to bring new friends here. There is a community. And that's one of the things I really like, is that, people like really want to like hold on to friends and be like, hey, and let's all get together and do stuff. And it's not just outdoors. Because there's some people that it's like, outdoors aren't my thing. And it's like, well, I know a group of people, they get together and knit. They're like, it's like, they're like, the going out there with the bears, I don't like the bears, but hey, let's get together and knit and drink beer. That's literally their thing. It's like
the book clubs. They're not, a lot of them read the books, but they also drink wine.
I can tip my hat to that.
Relate.
Right. But yeah, there's just a lot of different little communities here, and but yeah, like I said, it's kind of like coming up here and finding your unique. It's like there's people. I think what I found interesting is just how friendly people are to outsiders, at least from my perspective. Is that it is though about finding like that group. And I think that like the internet is a good way to find it, like through like Instagram, but also just kind of going out. You'll find like lots of young people when I say young, I'm like, Daniella, you're not that young anymore.
We're not advanced in age either, so let's yeah.
But yeah, you'll find a lot of people that are like really interested in getting together and doing this. I mean, there's mountain biking groups, there's ski groups, there's running groups, there's walking groups. I think that's what's so great about Alaska. I mean, there's literally like here in downtown, like Skinny Raven, they do both like a Tuesday running group. So like year round. So like we have this place called the Dome in Anchorage, which is an indoor running track. So if you sign up you pay $20 a year for the running club, and they do a pub run every week. And the pub runs year round, but a lot of people don't do it in the winter. But in the summer, they set up a run and everyone runs, and then you meet up at the pub at the end and get a ticket for completing the run. But then in the winters, since you signed up for the running club, you get free access to the indoor track once a week.
Oh, nice.
And so, but that's kind of their way to kind of encourage you to actually sign up for the Dome, which is a nonprofit. And my husband and I have actually signed up for the Dome because it's a good deal and we like going there. But yeah, there's groups like that. There's like yoga in the park in the summers where they all get together and do yoga. There's all kinds of little groups. So that's why I really do like it, Alaska, that there's a lot of different communities. And I think that, yeah, good deal.
So part of what I teach in my framework, so it's it's finances, robustness. So think mental and physical strength, ecosystem, and dreams. Like, does it get you closer to your dreams? And I honestly, like, I go back and forth between like which one is more important, and I think they're all equally important. But the two that I always come back to are robustness, because if you're not, like, think about moving to Alaska. If you weren't in a good place mentally and you have to get out to like physically meet people at clubs, like that could be really difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Physically, like if you're packing up boxes and moving and shifting things like that, like you can train for that. But the other side of it is your ecosystem, like the community you moved from and the community you're moving to. Like you want to be able to build those friend groups because that's why you stay. Like the blue zones across the world where people are, there's more centurions or people over 100 years old in those little blue zones across the country. I've heard over and over, like, as I've watched a documentary and I've read blogs and things like that. And they always say that it's not what they eat or drink. Like one guy has a cigarette and like a bottle of wine every single day. That was one of the stories that I remember, but it was his people that he was with all the time that kept him alive. Like he had like a small group of friends that he met with. They had dinner like 3 or 4 times a week. Like those were his people. And I always think like, wherever you are, there are ways to do it, especially now with the internet, to be able to get on meetup groups before you even move. And then if you go and do kind of a proof of concept and stay in that city for a week or two, you can meet people,
Right.
I had a friend, I have a media coach that I work with, and she basically said that like, she wishes she would have like not joined mom groups, but like almost shadowed mom groups before she moved to the city that she moved to. Cause she was used to living in the big city. And then when they had a child, they had to move to the suburbs. They needed more room. And she's like, had I like gotten into some of these mom groups and kind of like seen how they were and how they acted and their style of parenting and things like that, she's like, I'm not sure that I would have moved here, but before you move, you don't know that, right?
Oh boy.
I know ignorance is bliss, but like if you're not collecting data about where you're going to live, the chances of you actually staying there are slim, and it's expensive to move, especially to a place like Alaska.
No, it's expensive to move here. But what I would also say though, so I mean, I've moved multiple times now throughout my life and by myself. So like I moved from when I got out of the Navy, I moved from Charleston to California. And then I moved from California to Seattle for a job. And I lived there for 6 years while I worked. And then I went to college. And then I got the job. This is all not counting the moves I did in the Navy. And then I moved from, Seattle to Alaska. And I do think, though, that a lot of people think it's going to be instantaneous. Like, I'm just going to get there and it's like all these people, I'm going to get to know everybody. I'm going to have all these friends right off the bat. It's like, it's not instantaneous. It takes a while to put down roots. I would say realistically, it takes at least a year, if not two, to solidly form friendships and kind of hit your stride. And so that's also something you have to be ready for. So, like my first, but I would say I was so busy my first year in Alaska with my career that it was okay that I was still not quite, I didn't have that many friends yet. And I was still going back to Seattle quite a bit. So I had a lot of friends in Seattle. So I was going down there on a regular basis on my off time and hanging out with my old friends, which you could say that was maybe a double-edged sword. Maybe I should have been making more friends in Alaska. So you could argue either way. If I had been putting more time into making friends in Anchorage, would I have, would my time have been putting down roots have been quicker? It's tough to say, but I would say it kind of paralleled when I was living in Seattle. It took me when I moved from California to Seattle without knowing anyone, it took me a solid year or two to really make friends. And when I say I moved to Seattle, I knew nobody when I moved to Seattle. I was completely alone. This was why did I move to Seattle? Seemed like a good idea at the time. In fact, I always, when people ask what would be a good name for a book about your life, if you ever decided to write one, like a memoir, mine would be "Seemed like a good idea at the time."
I have a few of those.
That's like the story of my life. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Wait, so I want to talk. I mean, I know. So this is when Daniella and I did our like prep discovery call. We were like, "Oh, we'll jump on the phone for 15 minutes," and then 2 hours later, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go to bed. It's like 11 o'clock at night because it's earlier for you." And this, I feel like this is no different because I feel like we could talk for like 2 more hours. But I love when you, like, when I got to know you, you're like, yeah, I wrote a couple dark novellas. So I love that you call it that, first of all. Can you explain what your book's about? Because I know you have some teasers from, well, one they can read, obviously, like the synopsis of the story, but you have teasers of your actual short stories that you've written on your website too,
yes,
right?
yes.
So tell us a little bit about the first and second book and then your stories, because I just, oh my gosh, I just love them.
So I've written two. So the first story was The Dark Land, and it was technically a novella. And I self-published it during the pandemic, which I didn't intend to publish it during the pandemic. My decision to publish it happened before the pandemic started. And I decided to publish it because I wanted to learn what it took to publish a book. And I had also learned, which I maybe mentioned earlier, that I was getting laid off. And I was like, well, what the heck? Why not? That was in the fall of 2019 when I learned I was getting laid off. I was like, you know what? Spring of 2020, I'm going to self-publish a book. What the heck? I won't have a job, and I'll just, I'll do this just to learn what it's like to. And I've got this great little horror novella about these creatures with tails in the interior of Alaska and Wrangell St. Elias National Park. I'll just self-publish this and see what happens. And then COVID hit. But then
know what happened there. A lot of people reading though.
Yeah, but then enough people liked it that they're like, well, hey, where's the sequel? And I was like, sequel? I wasn't going to. Okay, I guess I'm writing a sequel. And so the sequel is called The Devil's Valley. And it also takes place in Wrangell St. Elias Park. So now both stories revolve around the legend of the creatures with tails. And it's based on a oral tale from Elder Katie John of the Otna people. And I read about it in the book, The Upper Headwaters People. So it's a really creepy tale. Like I'm reading this going, oh, wow. So the crux of the tale is there at a place called Roasted Salmon Place. She is looking at, they're having, I'm fumbling my words now. Sorry, let me start over. So they're at Roasted Salmon Place, which is in the north side of Wrangell St. Elias National Park. One winter, a young hunter left the village to go hunting, and he went missing, didn't come back. And so, of course, naturally they became concerned, and they go out looking for him, and they come across these creatures, these hairy creatures with tails, and they're playing a game of soccer with his head. And his body's like swinging from a tree, and they're like eating it. It's like, so of course, they are not terribly pleased with this outcome.
Right.
As most of us would not be. And so they wait. And they notice when it starts to rain, the creatures don't like the rain. They run back in their little holes. And so they take the spruce trees and they cut them down and they put it across the holes and they burn it. So they burn the creatures back into their holes. But it was always understood that those things were still there.
Mm.
And so when you look up at the mountains there in around, so in particular like Skookum Volcano or the Devil's Mountain, there's actually a mountain called the Devil's Mountain, which I kind of got the name for the second book from that.
Yeah.
You look up there and you can see why people would think something's out there. It's the shape of the mountains and the way the mist swirls through them. And so that was kind of the basis for my horror stories. And you talk to the Atna people, they have a fervent belief in these people with tails around Wrangell St. Elias National Park. Now, when you go further away from that region, so you cross the boundary of the Copper River, the other people, like towards Dot Lake, they've never heard of the people with tails. So there's something about that boundary of the Copper River that oral legend goes away.
They don't like the water. I could see this all coming together.
They're a fervent believer in the wild men of the tundra, the Koleni. And they're also a very fervent believer in Bigfoot. So like when I was I started interviewing people for these stories, and it was very interesting talking about the different legends of, like different areas. So it's not even just by like, so you have Athabascan, which is the people of the interior. So Atna are Athabascan people, but they have a different series of legends than, say, the people who are from Dot Lake, which are also Athabascan, or the people from Lime Village who are out on the Seward Peninsula who are also Athabascan, but they speak Dena'ina. So Dena'ina versus Atna are two different like dialects.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go up towards Dawson City, they're Han-speaking people. And so they have a different language altogether and a different set of legends. And so it's, so I have my series of books I'm writing there. So I'm still working on my third series in the book, the final one, which will be called The Witch's Craw Mine. So I won't give away what's going to happen in that book, but it'll be the final chapter. I'm contemplating actually writing a prequel. So there's one character in the book, and he technically came out to that region as part of the building of the road, the Black regiments during World War II that built the road as part of the war effort during World War II. So I was actually going to write the story about how he came out there and first encountered the creatures with tails. And why he stayed in the region. So, yeah, because he's briefly mentioned in the second book.
Well, when we were talking through this, we went on a total different tangent. This is probably like a half an hour of our conversation is about, because you're moving to Hawaii, and I'm fascinated with mini-hoonies, which is like these little. I mean, they're legendary, but they also have like mini-hoonies on the 1800 census or something, that they were, shorter troll looking people. And so they're known for like mischievous deeds and like stealing things and tricking people and things like that. So we went down this whole other rat hole because you are also building a place in Hawaii, right?
Yep,
so
yep.
Talk about two extremes, right? Like, I mean, granted, you have an easy flight because Alaska does a lot of trips from Alaska to Hawaii. That's like one of their like main routes. But so talk about the difference between like Alaska and what you're experiencing in Hawaii. Because I imagine like building the cabin being a little off grid is very similar to Hawaii because the resources. But
well, it's interesting building there versus building in Chicken, because we're so off grid in Chicken that we have to carefully plan. Like we're 400 miles north of Anchorage, 70 miles from the nearest town. There's a little town of Tok So, we better make sure we have every bolt, every nut, everything we need for construction. Building in
Because there's no
Hawaii,
Home Depot out there.
there's no Home Depot until all the way back in Anchorage. So
Oh, wow.
there's a small hardware store. There's a small True Value hardware store, but they don't necessarily have everything we need.
Mm-mm.
Building in Hawaii, it's been an adventure, because even though they have stuff, they're pretty restricted. It's an island, so carefully planning everything we need. We're on the Big Island, so we do have like a Home Depot, but Home Depot, the closest one's 30 miles away. So, like
Little
right
bit of a
now,
haul.
it's a little bit of a haul. In fact, though, but the funny thing is like compared to like what we deal with in Alaska, like the attitude there on the Big Island is like, wow, 30 miles, that's so far away. And we're like, well, okay, like at
So we'll drive 30 miles to get coffee.
like, yeah, well, we'll drive, but it's like I can understand, living on an island like that. And it's been a lot of fun. Like going through the permitting process was really difficult there, and it took a long time to get the permit. Now we're doing a water encashment system, much like we're doing in Alaska, but there it's required. Where we're building is in what they call the Hilo rain shadow. So we're going to be doing water encashment at our place. We're doing solar hot water heaters, so that's required on the Big Island. We're doing it's like when we talked the Menehune, that's it's like really cool, like talking with our contractor about the Menehune. And
you got to tell the story. Didn't you have a story about the contractor, and there was something that happened?
Well, he has a couple of different really colorful stories. Like we were talking about like, because I was telling him about my books, and he was telling me about because I don't know if you look at the, like, when we started talking about the Menehune, and so here in Alaska, down in the southeast, they have a fervent belief in these like little gremlins that cause mischief in houses. And so we were talking about that. It's like the Menehune can be very beneficial. They can help with your building, they can help with stuff, but they can also play pranks if you make them mad. But they also believe in like demons. They believe in like demons over there. And they also believe in the night walkers as well. So like King Kamehameha's army. And so one of the big beliefs is like, it's like, don't ever fall asleep on the path. Like, don't fall asleep on the road. Don't fall asleep on a trail, like actually on the trail. Get off the trail at night. And it's like, well, why? Because the night walkers will come get you. And he was telling us the story about how they, there's, there's like this trail there on the Big Island where you can hike down to the sea, and it's like an old Hawaiian village. So he and his family, after his grandfather died, his grandfather requested his ashes be spread there. And so sometimes his family members will still go down there to visit the spot. Mm-hmm. Well, he said, of course, this is one of those things where, hey, we're going down there, let's make it into a party. And so they're, bringing more alcohol than they maybe should. But where you're also hiking, it's south-facing slope. It gets really hot. It's like 85 degrees with direct sun all day. And so it's like, well, you don't want to be hiking that at midday. So the best thing to do is to get up early in the morning, hike till it gets too hot, find shelter during the day, get up in the late afternoon, hike for a few hours till it gets dark. Well, when it's pitch dark, you want to find a place to sleep. Well, he said that his brothers and stuff, they were just like, well, we've been drinking, we're a little tired, let's just plop down right here.
Oh, no.
And he said his brother woke up to the middle of the night. His brother and his cousin woke up in the middle of the night to something clawing his arm and dragging him off the trail. And it took his other brother dragging him back. And they insisted it was King Kamehameha's army.
Yeah.
The night walkers. And so that was the one story he told us. And the other story he told us was, so they're in Hawaii, they're still like the different, what you would call shaman, who are priests, who practice the old ways. And it's like, you know, the old burial practices in particular, where they take the bones and they hide them somewhere sacred. And they do other practices as well. But so Keone had been working on a house, and after he worked on this particular house, he just didn't feel good at all. He was in constant pain, and he felt he'd, you know, gosh, I probably just twisted something, or I broke something, you know, I can't figure it out. So anyway, a couple of days later, his other cousin, who is also named Keone, this priest showed up at his house, just knocking on the door. I need to talk to Keone, who worked on this house. And his cousin was like, well, wrong Keone. You can talk to my cousin. He worked on that house. Go talk to him. He's like, I need to talk to him. He's got a demon. He's got a demon attached to him. And Keone's like, and so Keone, like, you know, so his cousin told him how to get to where Keone was working that day, or get to his house. And so here's Keone, and this guy comes up to him and is like, you've got a demon attached to you. And Keone's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, your shoulder is hurting because you have a demon. I can see it. And he walked up and he grabbed Keone, and he said his arm started burning from.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, wow, that's, you know, that's amazing, you know. And that's kind of like
better after, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of like when I say, well, the story of the Men with Tails was inspired by the Katie John story, but how I got that story was from my husband's trip to Roasted Salmon Place when he went out there for the first time. So he was homesteading in Alaska. At my husband's brother had one of the last federal homesteads in Alaska out in Slana, which is near the north part of Wrangell St. Elias. And so they would go hiking all the time at different places. So Ray decided one time to go to Roasted Salmon Place, which is also called Bazulnas. So he goes to the Park Service place where you go, and Park Service headquarters, you go in and you sign out, say you're going backcountry hiking. And the guy at the desk is like, you don't want to go there. And Ray's like, well, no, it's a nice day, and it's not that far of a hike. I'll be fine. He's like, no, man, you just don't want to go to that place. That's not a good place. And Ray's like, come on. I think he's just messing with me. Yeah. So, but he signs the form and he goes, and he walks out there. And he said he got out there and he was out there looking around. There's a couple of old structures out there and whatnot. And he's looking around. And he said that he just got this creepy sensation. Like, just everything in him screamed, don't turn around. Don't. If you turn around, that's it. It's over. Just get out of here. And so he just took off running back to the trailhead or whatever. Trailhead, and just that was it. And that's how he found out. Like, he did a little research and found out about Bazulnas and about that story. And the funny thing is everyone we've talked to since is just like, yeah, there's something about that place. In fact, when our contractors who helped us build our kitchen and sauna shower structure, we were sitting around one night. It's like, you know what the creepiest place in Alaska is? Have you ever been to Bazulnas? And my husband said, hey, I've got a book for you. Showed him my book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there's,
oh my gosh.
For at least for the here on the because there's different places in Alaska. In fact, there's a place down in the southeast that the town was completely abandoned. Like, for some weird supernatural reason, the town was completely abandoned. I can't remember the full story behind it because it's Alaska's so big. This down in that area. But yeah, there's all kinds of unique stories here in Alaska that just
we just are not going to understand. Yeah, it makes the hair on your neck stand up. Tells you to run, you run. Like I've definitely experienced a lot of crazy energy. There was I can't remember. It was one of the like ghost hunting shows or whatever, but they had a very similar, the entire town was abandoned. It was in the Southwest. And if you talk to the natives, which they like ended up talking to some elders, I mean, they just said like, it's just a matter of time. Like, they're skinwalkers. They will come, they will, throw their voices and do all of these things. And then the ghost hunters went, and not surprisingly had the craziest experience that they ever had. Like even before they set up their stuff, things were draining of batteries, and like they were hearing things like, you know, they're shining big, huge lights everywhere and there's nothing as far as the eye can see, you know, because you would see a reflection of eyes or something. If it was an animal, they saw nothing, you know? And I mean, even just watching it, like you got the creeps. It just seemed creepy. Oh
But
my gosh. Go ahead.
I will say one thing though. If you ever want to go ghost hunting, do not go with me and my husband. Well, you will not see anything. Like we went, so like for example, Gakona Roadhouse in Alaska is supposed to be one of the most haunted roadhouses in Alaska, and we stayed there one night. We were the only people staying in the roadhouse. We were staying in the quote unquote haunted room.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything.
Nothing.
Actually, the funny thing is I won't sometimes. Okay, I talk in my sleep sometimes, and I'll even sometimes sit up in my sleep and talk. And I did sit up in my sleep and talk for no reason that night. And my husband was like, man, I missed my chance to mess with her, because there was nothing. So there's that place when we went to, when I graduated with, I have a master's in engineering from WPI. We went back east and we toured around. We did all kinds of stuff. We went to, I can't remember the name of the inn, but it's in Concord, Massachusetts, where the Battle of Lexington and Concord happened. It's supposed to be the haunted hotel. We stayed across from the haunted room.
Yeah.
Nothing. If there must be something about us. If you go with us, you're not going to see anything. We've been to a whole bunch of haunted places and nothing. They know we're looking.
You also work with like high voltage, like nuclear type things. So maybe you have like an energy field around you that they're like, yeah, we can't penetrate that.
Yeah, well, I think it's the combination of me and my husband, because it's like if I'm alone, like the house I grew up in, I felt like was haunted as heck, and I saw stuff there all the time. But nah, two of us together, it's like nope.
We're good.
Nope.
Which there could be worse things, right? I would rather be the person that doesn't get messed with than the person that does. For sure.
No kidding.
Well, I mean, we've already been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. I think we scheduled this for like 30. We probably should have known that was going to happen, but I love that you're a storyteller like me, and I love your stories. There's no doubt that once you move to Hawaii, I'm going to have to get a whole nother podcast going with you on the whole other, because you're going to be part-time everywhere, right? You guys aren't moving there permanently, or are you?
Right. We're going to be, at least for the next like 10, 15 years or so while I'm working, we're going to be like
snowbirds,
where we're doing like summers in Chicken off the grid and winters in Hawaii. So when I say off the grid, you know, we hate to ruin it, but we probably will end up getting like Starlink in Chicken. You know, right now we have no internet in Chicken, but we're like, well, you know, maybe we should get internet. We're on that fence. But we might get internet out in Chicken, so we'll probably be doing podcasts from out there. So you can see us out there with bears roaming in the background, and try not to get eaten. I might get eaten live on air. I don't know.
I mean, good for ratings, bad for you.
Bad for me. But yeah, actually, I think the most funny thing that would happen is Ray has a 13-foot tall sculpture out there. It's a big, beautiful sculpture. We have this one moose that cannot figure out what it is. It can't decide if it wants to mate with it or attack it. Like literally, it's just so, it's a male moose. It's so confused. It like runs up and charges it, and then it runs around it. It tries to do bad things to it. It cannot figure out for the life of it what it is.
You should have a moose cam.
Oh, well, we don't have a moose cam, but we should get one just for that sculpture to see.
Yes.
We've had a female moose and a baby moose. We have like they come back to the same places. She sits there, lays next to it, but that male moose just cannot figure out what it is. It's like, here, you know, let me try again. I'm gonna get this thing, and then I'm gonna get this thing. It's like, okay, buddy. And my husband's like, okay, I designed this sculpture to be able to withstand the wind out here. I designed it to withstand like earthquake. I did not build it to withstand a moose.
Mating with a moose.
Yeah,
I
so-
definitely think you need a moose cam just for that sculpture because that's
just-
hilarious.
yeah, actually,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, actually, we need a moose cam for that, but we thought about just setting up like a cam at night to see what walks by,
Oh,
because
yeah.
like
Like a trail cam.
yeah, true, because we've seen the tracks and stuff, and like especially now that we bring our cat out there, like
Oh my
we
gosh.
know that the great horned owl, that was it. When I was like,
Great
what is the type of,
horned owl.
we have great horned owls out in Chicken, and they roost up on top of our beams, our support beams on the deck. But yeah, now that we bring our cat out there too, sometimes in the summer, he gets really freaked out by the animals that walk by, and we can tell because he'll be sitting out in the living room, and all of a sudden he'll just come running in and cuddle between us like, the things I've seen.
I can't unsee them. I'm so scared, Mom.
Well, here in Anchorage, our living room window is pretty high up off the ground, so the moose looks small, but I'm sure when
Oh,
they're
yeah.
walking by that front window there at the cabin, he's like, that's a big dog.
That is a big dog with big horns.
With big horns. Well, we're even sure, yeah.
What?
We're even sure that the lynx too, the lynx, he's got to be
Yeah.
going, that's a big cat. I mean, it's a cat,
Yes.
but it's a big cat.
It is a big, and it's a fierce looking cat too.
Yeah.
Fierce. Well, so if somebody wanted to come see all of your things, like I know you have the YouTube channel, where can people find you?
So if they want to find me on social media, like my handle is pretty much the same across all social media, DM Shepard 13 on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. My website is dmshepard.com. So that's the easiest way to find me. And like, if you get to my Instagram and Twitter, you'll find the Indie Escape Network. So definitely check out the Indie Escape Network, because it's not just me. It links you some other great groups within the Indie Escape Network that talk about different aspects of the film and movie industry. So yeah, come check us out. We're a fun group, just trying to help promote indie artists. The indie film movement is something we're all passionate about.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, Daniella. I love your stories. I just can't wait to have you on a second time, and we're going to do Hawaii next time for sure.
All right,
You'll be
all right.
more integrated. But thank you so much. Please go out and subscribe to her channel, follow her on her social, get her books and her stories. You're just so much fun. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great talking.
Well, I could go on forever and ever about moving you closer to your dreams, but I probably should save some thoughts for the next episode. A big thanks goes out to you for making time for me today. And making time for me, you're making time for future you, and we're both grateful. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the podcast, download the episodes, and leave me a 5-star review. I would really appreciate it. In return, if you go to my website, marriottsonthemove.com, and register for the Monday mailer, I'll send you a free Fred workbook to get your journey started. This is also where you can find all the show notes and all the ways to get in touch with me. A special thanks goes out to Rogue Media for its wisdom and partnership. Until next time, friends, keep moving forward towards your dreams. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I am a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. This is solely my perspective based on my own experience and training. Okay, now it's over. For reals. Bye for now.
This has been a Rogue Media Network